Due to the lack of a quorum, I'm not going to open the meeting. I'm going to do the pledge, and we'll do some announcements and an award. And if another council member shows up or commissioner shows up, then I'll backpedal and then I'll open the meeting. So I think we'll do the pledge at this time. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, no roll call, so we'll go ahead. We have a couple announcements. The Easter egg hunt. Dave, did you want to talk on that?
It'll just be this Saturday.
Right.
The times are actually up there, so I can't read it from here.
Oh,
that's why you're asking me to do it.
yeah. I have hard with the big words. You help me with the big words, right?
Yeah. Easter.
Okay, I helped put some of these together. How many eggs are there?
10,000. 10,000 eggs.
10,000.
It'll be down at Camillin Park. I believe it's 10 a.m. is
Okay,
the start.
it is?
1
p.m.
Well, get there at 10, then you'll be prepared and ready.
Rain or shine,
Rain or
Quinlan
shine.
Park, age groups. They have toddlers 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I did take one of the eggs, and I did put a $5 bill in one. I didn't tell anybody. It's mixed in there somewhere, and all the rest of them have some candy. So I hope somebody finds the $5 bill one. They will. Okay, bring your own baskets if whoever might listen to this, there isn't going to be some place to put them all. And with 10,000 eggs, you should get more than 2 or 3 some little kids' hands can hold. So any other comments on that, Ryan or Dave?
It should be pretty good.
Should be a good turnout.
Good turnout.
Rain or shine?
Rain or shine.
Okay. The tree giveaway is coming up.
The following Saturday.
Yep, and it is going to be the Saturday after Easter. Has anybody worked on the tree giveaway? You want to do that one time. And really the fun part is to do the dipping, where they dip the nets. Because when you go home, you're soaked and wet, and it's cold and raining, and you're wondering, why in the heck did I do this? But I've done it a couple times just to say I done it. I've worked on the tree giveaway quite a few years. Fun event, fun Saturday down at same place, Quinlan Park, over more towards the boat ramp area, isn't it?
Correct. And it'll still be the same thing, three trees per family.
Right.
And
I still have a couple growing.
yep. And if you go online, the city's website, we do have the tree species listed. So I know there was a thundercloud, hydrangea. I looked real quickly. I think there's a pear in there. Right. There's some trees, some tall trees, smaller trees, and shrubs.
Now, aren't a lot of the trees around Post Falls on the road sides of the roadway that came from the tree giveaway?
Probably not on the roadways, but in a lot of the yards, we've done over 30,000 trees since we started this program.
Wow.
Makes a difference.
Yeah. I put some in. They got pretty good size, and I changed my plan, took them out, moved them around, and yeah, the great trees. You're talking $30, $40, $50 tree. Or
At least.
a lot of them or more. Yeah. Thank you. We have a ceremony for one of my favorite people that I spent years working with. If I knew half of what she knows for Park and Rec, I'd be a great chairman.
Well, I don't know if this is a ceremony or more of a celebration, a thank you to Tami Martinez. 14 years on the Park and Rec Commission. That means from 2004 to 2018. As you can see, a few things have changed, not just our covers, but our system has grown. It's almost like going from, the black and white TV to color. In that time, we have added 9 parks for a total of 141 acres of parkland. That doesn't take into account our new community forest areas. In addition, we've dedicated and opened another 4 parks areas. We've made upgrades to parks. We've done expansions of parks, added indoor facilities, so many new recreation programs and special events. The department has just grown with the community.
If I put another 1,500 days or 200 meetings, I would catch her. And I've been here 10 years.
So, yeah, it's a lot of dedication in there. We've done projects that were cost savings from the Pocket Park on Spokane Street, which saved the city and urban renewal a lot of money, which means the taxpayers saved a lot of money. We've done land banking with the Crutch property. That was a keystone for protecting Corbin Park and bringing in the tie-in for the community forest between Camillin Park and Corbin. And really, that was the first large purchase the city did. That was 75 acres, and that was quite a change at that time. We've also used some of the latest technology with Layered and adding our signs that are interactive at Falls Park. First department to do that, use it in an outdoor setting. Tami was instrumental in that, in helping us make that happen. You know, there's been a lot of commission members over the years that have served with her. Carl Sostrom, Sherry Hodel, Danny Wolf, Dora Griffith, Howard Gould, Ryan Zane, Jackie McAvoy, Jamie Davis, James Hale, Kerry Thorson, Nelson, Randy, Rick, Tammy, Jason, everybody there. We've had a lot of people. This has meant a lot of dedication as Rick figured out how many different sessions in there, and a lot of hard work. It's provided playgrounds, neighborhood parks, river access, additional lands, special events, sports fields, sports courts. We've gone in and revamped our interlocal agreement with the school district. We've just seen a lot. I'm not going to read everything here that's happened in 14 years, and this is just a small sample. This really was what would fit on the page, not what has transpired, but we saw the recreation station. Starting with that, went to the treehouse. Hastings Fields were added. You know, the Winterfest became a reality and expanded. Trailhead Event Center. We had bridal fairs, Corbin ditch projects, the Beck Park development. Disc golf was revamped at Corbin Park. We added the tennis courts at Black Bay, a Boys and Girls Club partnership to help that building be built, the park maintenance shop on 3rd Street, the signage on Treaty Rock, which really led into Falls Park. Now we're working on Crown Point Park, Tullamore Park. There's stuff in Fieldstone. We've purchased buses, so just a wide range of things. We said goodbye to some old facilities, the old police station, which was then our old office, to the new city hall, and then the recreation station. From that, as I said earlier, we did indoor spaces, a partnership with the Boys and Girls Club. We purchased a chamber building. Tami was instrumental in helping us work through that to make it a win-win for both organizations, a great partnership. Our Trailhead Event Center, the community garden buildings, and then, of course, the 3rd Street shop. So that was what the chamber building looked like in there. These are all things that just kind of happened in that time frame, which is a lot of stuff. We talked about the tree giveaway just a couple minutes ago. It's amazing how it showed up on this. 30,000 trees plus, and going strong.
Wow, look at that.
All kinds of events, from our big wheel races to duathlons, fishing derbies, youth races, Post Falls Festival, and even international things like the Hairborne Band coming in. So those are all events that happened under her watch. Mentioned the new buses. We use those for camp, but then we used them for outdoor programs, shoes and brews, all kinds of things. It wasn't just, the fun events and doing all that. There's a lot of future planning. And I'm kind of preaching to the choir for the television audience here, because our Park and Rec Commission, they do work hard. They do a lot of things behind the scenes that aren't seen. They act as our sounding board, but so much of the work is done on the future planning. So we go through the parks. Our plans are getting more and more sophisticated, more expensive.
Yeah.
We have a lot more regulations to go through, like everybody. And a lot of them, there's many renditions. This is actually Tullamore Park, where it first started out. Negotiations started on the left there with just a pocket drawing giving us about 5 acres.
Well, Tammy, how many years from start to finish did you work on this? 8?
At
Bullimore?
least. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, I'm sorry.
Yep, that's okay. It went from negotiations to then the center part where we had a design. Everything came forward and it was completed and actually colorized. And then, of course, the economy crashed, sat dormant. We spent a lot of time working on it. Rick helped immensely with this, the whole commission going through, going back and negotiating back and forth with the developer till we have a project that's moving forward and we're going to be proud of it. It's going to serve the neighborhood well. I thought this was kind of interesting. I talked about the 3rd Street shop. That was the old Chameleon Street shop, and it was so packed in there that you had to get the cars set in a certain way just to keep them down there. Was not efficient, to say the least. We moved to the 3rd Street shop, which is, actually, if I can, I'll probably mess this up, but right in here. So we went from Chameleon to that, but that's Black Bay before the 3rd Street expansion was done, same time. Of course, now we have lighted tennis courts, and it's gorgeous. Beck Park, that was happening when Tami came on board. It went from an open alfalfa field to what you see today. Syringa Park was another one that was there, and the neighborhood parks aren't just an open space and a little bit of a break and a buffer for the neighborhoods, but it's really a gathering spot. So that was our first movie in the park with the police department at Syringa Park. When we approached Tami about signage, wanting to upgrade what we had at Treaty Rock and to celebrate that linkage between the tribe and the city and stuff, she jumped right into it. We came up with some wonderful panels. We redid how we protected the pictographs on the rock. Became quite an event. The Coeur d'Alene tribe was very happy with it, grateful for what we did. We were grateful for what they brought forward to us and the information they gave. If you go up there, you're going to find kind of the Post Falls history of what happened and the tribal history and how they blend together. And it's quite unique because it shows the timeline. It's very educational, but it took a place that was just kind of showing the rock and a couple old signs to something that truly told a story about how this area was created and settled. So maybe created isn't the right word, but settled's the right word. From there, we went to Falls Park, updating that, the interactive signs, and just a lot of time was spent, a lot of research. I think it was a labor of love for her, but what she gave us was something that just raises the bar completely. But whether it's the interaction, the honoring people, as we did with the renaming of 21st and Idaho to Hildy Kellogg, to bringing the movies together, that connection, that's part of what the Park and Rec Commission does to make everything for the community. It's the staff, and most of all, it's the community, the participants, because that's what everything has been done for. And for that, we thank you, Tami, because you've made Post Falls a much better place. And we'd like you to come forward because we have something for you.
Wow. You can tell how much I've aged over the past 14 years.
Come up here.
Oh.
Tami Martinez, in appreciation. I'm going to get in trouble for this. I'm going to read it this way. Tami Martinez, in appreciation for 14 years of dedicated service to the City of Post Falls Parks and Recreation Commission. And we have some, so you get tired of that, you can change it with the season or whatever.
I know we're supposed to talk in there, but you don't hear me, you don't hear me, but I have had the pleasure of working with some amazing people over the past year, commissioners whose heart is just the same place mine was, so thank you so much for allowing me to serve with you. And this staff is amazing. Talk about visionary. We are a little town of 9,700 when I first moved here, and we've grown about 30,000 more, and under the leadership of our parks with Dave, has been a pleasure to see his dreams and staff make a lot of things come true. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you. We're going to miss you, kid. Okay, I believe we have a presentation from, is it Ellie Marino? Got it. Just like it shows there. KMPO, which is?
The Kootenai Metropolitan Planning Organization.
Thank you.
Yes. So, good evening, everyone. Glad to be here today to share just some information with you. I'm the transportation for the Kootenai Metropolitan Planning Organization. KMPO is what we go by. It's a little less of a mouthful. But we are working on updating our regional non-motorized transportation plan. And just wanted to be able to share this information with the City of Post Falls and anyone that's watching this evening. So just a little information about us. I know a lot of people maybe aren't familiar with KMPO, but we are the federally mandated metropolitan planning organization from Kootenai County. So every urban area that has a population of greater than 50,000 has a designated MPO. And we kind of reached that point back in 2003 when we were officially formed. And our planning area is all of Kootenai County, not just the urbanized area. Our mission statement is collaboratively developing transportation plans for the safe and efficient movement of people and goods in Kootenai County. We're directed by our board, which is made up of elected officials from the urban area cities, so Coeur d'Alene, Post Falls, Hayden, Rathdrum, the 4 highway districts, ITD, Kootenai County, and then the Coeur d'Alene Tribe. And then we work collaboratively with our technical committee, KCAT, Kootenai Area Transportation Team, which is made up of those jurisdictions' technical people. So the boots on the ground, we work with Rob Paulus here at the City of Post Falls. He is on our technical committee. So a little history about our regional non-motorized transportation plan. We're required federally to include non-motorized transportation in our metropolitan transportation plan. But in 2009, our board wanted to look at that specifically in its own standalone plan as a complement to automobile and transit uses in the county. And I know you guys focus on kind of the recreation piece, and we focus on non-motorized transportation for the transportation, I guess, piece, but there's a lot of overlap. And as you guys know, our trails are used for a variety of different uses and that sort of thing. So the purpose of the plan is really to provide a regional vision for all of Kootenai County. So we look a lot at not just the urban area, but where are the connections between cities and that sort of thing. It identifies the challenges, opportunities, priorities, recommendations, and current conditions in the county. And then really it's a tool for local agencies and groups. We encourage them, our member jurisdictions, as well as others in the county, to adopt our plan or pieces of it. And then also to use the information and data that we have to apply for funding for different projects. So in our 2009 plan, so our existing plan currently, the main asset in Kootenai County was the existing system. So we have pretty good bones as far as non-motorized transportation goes. But we have a significant amount of barriers and other concerns. Insufficient right-of-way for additional facilities, actual and perceived danger of non-motorized travel, lack of sidewalks in general, and then also lack of facilities in rural areas, connections to transit, so transit stops and that sort of thing, gaps in policy, whether that's planning or ordinances, that sort of thing, and then lack of leadership at the jurisdictional level. Our plan also identified different projects throughout the county, and those kind of fit into 3 different categories. So we had regional connections. So we hear a lot about, for example, connecting the US 95 trail up to Sandpoint, as well as connections between the communities in Kootenai County. So a connection from like Rathdrum to Post Falls. And then facilities along just main routes in the area. So the map up here shows Rathdrum and Post Falls, and those pink lines were kind of the desired project routes. So you have Pole Line and Highway 41, Southeast Way. So just making sure that there's a complete set of facilities along some of those major routes. For completed projects, I could only say that we have one on our list that is officially completed, and that was adding bike facilities from Harrison to Ironwood Drive along Government Way in Coeur d'Alene. But that's kind of the problem with transportation planning, is it can take 5 to 10 years for a concept of a project to implementation. And so a lot of the projects that we had in our plan are still in progress. So Southeast Way, for example, Coeur d'Alene's adding bike facilities from Hutter to kind of the Prairie Trail area by Riverstone. So that should be completed this year. Then as Highway 41 is widened, there'll be a shared use path from Rathdrum to Post Falls. And then just general sidewalk and bike lane infill. And priority is kind of given to projects that are included in, road projects that have already been programmed. So you might have, something on a roadway where they say, okay, well now we have some extra funding or that sort of thing to add a shared use path or a sidewalk. One thing we're seeing now is projects being adopted into jurisdictional plans. So the city of Post Falls, I know, with their newly adopted transportation plan, a lot of the projects that we had in our regional non-motorized plan are now included in that new plan, and so will end up being added to the CIP for the city of Post Falls, and we'll see some of those actually be completed.
And that's put together by the street department? Is that right?
Engineering and community development.
Okay, yeah. So as I said, we are currently working on an update to our regional non-motorized plan, and we've been working on this for about a year now, and we're hoping to wrap this up in the next few months. So just a little information on that. Some of our goals for this plan update was we really wanted the jurisdictions and local organizations and groups to have ownership in the plan, whether that was to adopt pieces of it. In a lot of ways, our member jurisdictions are the ones implementing the plans. Since we, KMPO, we're not out building roads and that sort of thing. We also really wanted it to be educational and user-friendly. This was something our technical committee was really interested in, both for the public and for decision makers. So being able to show, maybe this project that's connecting Post Falls and the city of Coeur d'Alene, this maybe wasn't in the city's specific plan, but this is why it's an important asset to the region. And then we wanted it to better reflect current conditions and trends. It's been almost 10 years since our last plan update, so it is time that we take a look and revamp that, and to show, what kind of, or where people are using non-motorized transportation, what are the trends. And this plan really is a lot more data-driven than our original plan was. And so we are hoping to continue to collect data and add that into the plan and help decide or drive some of those decisions. We've been working with a stakeholder group since last fall, and we revamped our 2009 vision statement, and it's quite all-encompassing. It's a little bit of a run-on sentence, but it reads, to plan for, enhance, educate, and encourage non-motorized travel through a mapped, maintained, safe, accessible, connected and designed network that considers destinations and community resources. So we're kind of fitting everything in there. I won't go over all of our goals specifically, but kind of the 4 areas that we are focusing on are education and outreach, safety and maintenance, connectivity and accessibility, and policy planning and design. One of the big drivers for this update, we have an ad hoc bike and pedestrian committee member on our technical committee, and our previous committee member was very interested in some of the safety issues that we saw throughout the county, and so that kind of really is what pushed us to relook at our plan and do an update. So one thing that was one of our objectives in our old plan was to look at crash data for the county. And we now kind of have a good database through the local highway technical committee that they collect data on crashes throughout the state. And so we are able to look at the crashes involving vehicles. So none of these include like bike-to-bike crashes or crashes between bikes and pedestrians, but these do involve vehicles. And so we've seen, since 2011, we've seen a slight increase in crashes throughout the county. This is crashes by jurisdiction, so you can see the city of Coeur d'Alene has by far the highest number of crashes.
These are on the streets of the municipalities then?
Yes.
Got it, thank you.
And you can see Post Falls is number 2 with 35. And really, we attribute to the large majority of crashes in Coeur d'Alene due to their more extensive bike and pedestrian network, as well as a lot of the seasonal visitors in downtown and that sort of thing. So these are kind of the top roads in the county for crashes, the top 20. So Government Way, US 95, and 4th Street through the Coeur d'Alene Hayden area are the highest. They're also pretty long corridors as well. So for Post Falls, there were crashes at I-90 ramps, on Celtice Way, along State Highway 41 and Mullen Avenue. Those are shared with other jurisdictions as well, because Mullen Avenue also encompasses the Mullen Avenue in Coeur d'Alene. Right. I didn't do a real good job of separating those out. But Spokane Street specifically, there has been 9 bike or pedestrian crashes since 2011 along that corridor. So as I said, we have been doing some stakeholder and public involvement. Kind of primarily we've been working with our technical committee. That's really where we kicked off our planning update. Last May we did a safety workshop with local jurisdictions. There were also some consultants and other community members that were a part of that. But that was put on by the Federal Highway Administration. They came in and we spent a whole day looking at bike safety and then another day looking at pedestrian safety and improving safety through design specifically. So what kind of facilities and treatments can local engineers and cities can be using to increase non-motorized safety. So that was really great. We got a lot of good feedback on that. And we're going to be actually including a section in our plan that goes through some of those different treatments and their best practices, as well as pros and cons and where some of those are most appropriately located. And that'll help educate, decision makers or the public on maybe why a certain facility was decided over another and that sort of thing. We've also, again, been working with our stakeholder group, primarily for vision and goal setting have been our 2 workshops. And then coming up, we're going to be looking at prioritizing a list of projects for the plan again. And then we've also are currently in the middle of our big public involvement outreach. We have a survey and a wiki map that's live right now, and we're trying to just collect feedback from the public on who's using non-motorized transportation, how often, what deters people from using it, that sort of thing. That's kind of what the survey covers. And then the map is pretty neat because we're asking people to not only map the routes they take, but also some of those areas where they run into problems, where they may be, missing a sidewalk or a crosswalk or a bike lane. And then also being able to map some, future routes or other opportunities that they see. So I think you guys got those links in a packet or something. If you guys want to fill that out, I know the City of Post Falls had posted those links on their Facebook page. So those surveys, we originally were planning to have them close on Friday, but I think we might extend those for a couple more weeks. Next week, we are doing 2 public workshops. The one on Monday will be in Coeur d'Alene, but then on Thursday, we'll be having one here in Post Falls at City Hall from 5 to 7. And tentatively, we're in this room, but we may kind of extend out into the rotunda. But we are going to just be kind of looking at the update process, different plan elements. We'll have some handouts for people, the goals and vision of the plan, and then the survey and Wikimap preliminary results, as well as some of that crash data for people to take a look at. And then it's just an opportunity for people to provide feedback and any other input or questions that they have. So like I said, we're really wrapping this up, hopefully. So again, that survey and Wikimap are at least open until Friday. We're probably going to extend that for at least another week. We'll have those public workshops in April. We also purchased some equipment to do bike and pedestrian counts for all of we're working with the jurisdictions for specific locations throughout the cities and along the trails to identify what intersections or trails or that sort of thing, how often they're being used. So we're going to add some preliminary data into our plan and then continue to collect that data going forward. Again, we'll be prioritizing a list of projects, and then in May, early June, we'll be doing a review of that plan, of the draft, and then hopefully we'll be adopting that in July. So that was kind of a lot of information. Oops, went backwards, still going backwards. But does anyone have any questions?
Your data collection.
Yes.
How do you go about that? I mean, it's got to be labor intensive, use machines to count also, but
Yeah.
for streets, I mean, 3rd Street, 4th Street, 15th Street, Government Way, you can't differentiate in a counter between a bike and a pedestrian and a car, can you?
Yeah, so
Use a scanner camera?
we actually purchase cameras. So we we purchased 2 types. So one type is basically a trail camera that a lot of people would use for like
Okay,
hunting.
sure. I use them.
So we're planning on using those on some of the regional trails, whether it's a Centennial or that sort of thing. And then we also purchased these other cameras that we'll also be letting the jurisdictions use for general road counts, but they can be placed at an intersection or along a roadway, and it's a video. And I guess the jurisdictions can either send them in, there's a couple companies that will process those videos, or we have a manual counting board, so you can speed them up and count how many pedestrians. But those they'll count pedestrians, bicycles, and vehicles, so that can be used for 3 different purposes.
I think most people would be surprised at the vehicle or pedestrian or bike count on most streets. I lived on a street, they did a count one time. If you would have asked me before the count, I would have said 800 a day. It was 34. Amazing how much more traffic there is. Do you find that in your surveys, that they're just really up there?
We haven't begun doing the counts. I think we will be, our goal is to start those next week, but I think it'll end up being Monday the 9th-ish.
There'll be some surprises, I would bet.
I think so, and I think a lot of the jurisdictions will be interested in that information.
Thank you. Very good job.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Does it, this is the first time I've seen it, I think this is pretty neat, the non-motorized, but doesn't it seem like in our county, like the difference between, or the distance between Rathdrum and here and Coeur d'Alene and some of those, that's part of the challenge? Are you really going to be able to connect like Rathdrum and Post Falls along 41?
The shared use path, I know, from Post Falls to Rathdrum will be part of that road widening project. How many people use that trail, I am not sure. But we've had a lot of feedback for some of those regional connections. And that's something that when we get our list of projects through that wiki map, we'll be discussing that both with our stakeholder group and our technical committee to determine, well, how, will we just need some data collection on these as we go to see, oh, this is surprising how many people use this route, whether it's if they're commuting or just using it for recreation, or, the technical committee may have, their own thoughts on, well, we should be prioritizing some of these more urban routes before. And that's where that, that new section in our plan that looks at the different facilities and treatments for bikes and pedestrians. So a lot of people have talked about, well, we need to add a shared use path on Meyer or that kind of thing, where really like a shoulder, a widened shoulder, that sort of thing, more on a rural roadway would be more appropriate. And so it's just kind of helping educate the public a little bit more and kind of trying to see which routes are going to work for everyone, I guess.
Yeah. How's the funding work then? When they want, is that related to each different? Like you have a very diverse board in different cities, so they'd be responsible for their own sections. Is that kind of the theory?
Yeah. We help jurisdictions to apply for grant funding and that sort of thing. And I'm hoping that with some of the data we collect, there are funding opportunities out there for different jurisdictions or like the Centennial Trail Foundation to apply for that funding. But especially along the roadways, those kinds of projects will be implemented through like a city's capital improvement project kind of thing. And so that's where it comes to, we need, in order for these projects to get implemented or different pieces of the plan, we need to work closely and collaboratively with the different jurisdictions to get them on board as well and to see see the value in those different facilities or that sort of thing.
I think once the data's collected, there's going to be some real eye-openers. I'm looking forward to that. That's an interesting project.
Should be good. We are also excited. Like I said, our old plan wasn't as data-driven, so I think some of these numbers will be nice to have as we go along and, as cities, set up project lists and that sort of thing to better understand how different facilities and areas are used and where they should be prioritizing different facilities and that sort of thing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great job.
Thank you very much.
Well, at this time, again, due to a lack, I'm embarrassed because usually I've not seen this very, very few times in my 10 years, but for lack of a quorum, we will go off the air at this time. We have a record now of our presentation and award, and great job, Valley. So we will go off the air. We never did